I don't believe that they didn't know. I have in my evidence, I have a magazine that is a People magazine, and it has an article in there about a disease called acute flaccid myelitis. It was published at a time when there was concern because all of a sudden there started appearing this disease, acute flaccid myelitis, in children, very young children. And it was supposed to be very rare, but it had been increasing in preponderance. And it was published at a time and in conjunction with reference points to technologies associated with what I understood to be a form of invasive electronic interference in naturally occurring electrochemical impulses and signals being sent up the spinal column. If somebody was involved with a technological paradigm whereby they were attacking the spinal columns of particular individuals in order to cybernetically enhance them, to make them available for any number of other reasons, and that they had targeted certain children in order to make them test subjects, in order to use them for research, and in order to harvest their biological materials for R&D for the furtherance of what I understood to be specifically a form of cybernetic enhancement. I see in the summer of 2017, I had a communication that part of what was going on in the draft of the revision to NAFTA, where that somebody had an ideation that they were going to start with very young children, creating a social stratification. That certain children were going to be tortured into being drugged, while other children were raised with access to educational paradigms that would teach them robotics. That they were literally going to create a system of haves and have nots involving children at very young ages. That certain children were going to get to grow up to understand biological engineering, and other children were going to be victims that were supposed to be cowed with sensual stimulation and a reduction in their cognitive capacities into acceding to being remotely controlled by other children, and that they were going to raise a generation of children at an even younger stage than they had the whole DAPA and DACA generation, into lacking any moral or ethical compunction about riding around in other little kids. And one of the ways that they could effectuate this was with the advances in technology, and with parents just giving their kid a cell phone and then just being happy that their kid wasn't yelling and screaming at them because their kids have already been entrained to be addicted to electronics, and the parents are also addicted to electronics, so they don't want their child's addiction competing with their addiction. Who is going to actually do something about the fact that there are people that are vile and destitute enough that they would actually literally try to raise and program a entire generation of children to believe it's okay to just try to remote control other children until they grow up to be young adults that think it's okay to remote control other young adults? Like, that medical treatment is not an actual medical treatment. There's no actual scientific medical soundness about what you're doing. But you, for whatever reason, are what, just following orders? Just need a job? Are involved in some sort of labor struggle in order to assert your rights? Right now, there's absolutely no record on Congress.gov in any of the government documents about a treaty for mutual legal assistance that used to exist between the United States and Belarus. I have it in my archive. I have it in my evidence. And it's not just an archive, it's evidence. In my evidence, I have this. I found it previously, as well as a schedule. I found the schedule for the Secretary of the Senate that stated all of these different pending instruments on the table for a particular time frame. The United States has many, many, many treaties for mutual legal assistance with other countries. They're not all just about the Treaty on Open Skies, right? They're not all just about observation of sexy vehicles or some bastardization of the celestial bodies components of space law. They're supposed to be about actual criminal investigations and prosecutions. Now, just because we have former legislators and executives that were involved in sexy secret societies while they were in college, including very exclusive ones that were a part of foreign travel or student exchange, doesn't mean that the law is nothing more than somebody else's hedging strategy and that legal process is nothing more than a really kinky cerebral bondage scheme. Let me tell you, even if you thought that the law was meant for a kinky cerebral bondage scheme, you're not living up to anything close to demonstration of mental capacity to engage a contract, even for a kinky cerebral bondage scheme, under the auspices of violations of our constitutional rights and abrogation of duties associated with the judicial branch of government. Where is that treaty? Why am I getting reference after reference after reference after reference of chemical weapons dumps associated specifically with Belarus, but not exclusively? How did certain countries just get out of the mix around their responsibilities associated specifically with ammonium nitrate, and other countries persisted for a considerable amount of time, especially considerable amount of time around the time frame when that treaty on what was supposed to be mutual legal assistance was in effect? See, just because lawyers in the United States thought for at some period of time that they were allowed to co-conspire with people that were completely reckless when it came to handling uranium enrichment associated with the Department of Energy, so that they could play all these derivative schemes under the auspices of gas and oil production, and at some point thought that they were going to make a 007 out of healthcare for later implementation, doesn't mean you're going to get away with it. Where is the information on the mutual assistance treaty that the United States had with Belarus and other countries? The information that is currently available in the alleged public records, the electronic public records of the official sites, is completely inaccurate. A lot of it is completely inaccurate. And not only that, I have up here right now from the journal Lancet a article, Acute Flaccid Myelitis, Cause, Diagnosis, and Management. Apparently, on December 21st, 2020, a series of doctors wrote an article talking about complications and other things associated with it. This is not something that was very well known, but it is something that was identified in an article in People magazine a year and a half earlier. The understanding was that somebody was using this specific diagnosis to test out some regime. And a little over a month ago, there is an article in a major medical journal that is doing what today? Let's put it this way. It's been a month since this was published, and there's very, very specific information that has been misrepresented on the official congressional and other websites associating what would be very debilitating in terms of neurochemical processes and spinal health, were it to be allowed to continue materializing in the pattern and in accordance with the benchmarks that it has already set up. Why is this happening? Under whose authority were public records allowed to be altered in order to, if somebody desired, implement a process by which to accomplish a biological weaponization effort targeting people that have recently been put under a very substantial sanction by the Office of Foreign Asset Control? Now, this is not unprecedented. It's happened before. I'm absolutely startled at what is constructed right now. It is unacceptable